Okay, I'm going to read a speech that Ingersoll said about Alexander von Humboldt. I need to give some introduction because most of you are saying who. Alexander von Humboldt was an extremely well-known scientist in his time, but like Ingersoll, he's not very well known now. The speech that I'm going to give was from 1869 at the event of the 100th anniversary of Humboldt's birth, and that was about 10 or 11 years after his death. So it was quite a memorial, and there aren't too many scientists that are remembered for their 100th anniversary. This speech may sound like it's a little bit of hyperbole, but it was in keeping with the feelings about Humboldt at the time. So I'll quickly mention two reasons why we should remember Humboldt. Humboldt was a champion of the idea that everything in the physical world can be understood and measured in terms of physics and chemistry laws that were developed in controlled laboratory experiments up to that time. So the current studies of climate change and meteorology, and among many other things, are direct descendants of the work of Humboldt. He was a world traveler, and while he traveled, he tried to do very accurate measurements around the world. It's worth remembering that before this time, storms were the product of God's will, providence, whatever. Humboldt tried to measure the actual forces in the gases and the rocks that actually led to these things. And second, I'll point out, according to Wikipedia, Darwin carried a 30-volume set of Humboldt's works on the Beagle with him on his ship. So this is not light reading material. That's fair to say that Darwin was strongly influenced by Humboldt and his methods. So this is what Ingersoll said about the scientist Humboldt and also about science in general. So the selection begins. In the antiquated and romantic castle of Tegel, near the beautiful city of Berlin, the great Humboldt, 100 years ago today, was born. And there he was educated after the method suggested by Rousseau. There he received the impressions that determined his career. There the great idea that the universe is governed by law took possession of his mind. And there he dedicated his life to the demonstration of this sublime truth. He came to the conclusion that the source of man's unhappiness is his ignorance of nature. After having received the most thorough education at that time possible, he turned his attention to the sciences of geology, mining, mineralogy, botany, the distribution of plants, the distribution of animals, and the effect of climate upon man. All grand physical phenomena were investigated and explained. From his youth, he felt a great desire to travel. He felt, as he says, a violent passion for the sea, and he longed to look upon nature in her wildest and most rugged forms. He longed to give a physical description of the universe, the grand picture of nature, to account for all phenomena, to discover the laws governing the world, and to do away with that splendid illusion called special providence, to establish the fact that the universe is governed by law. To establish this truth was and is of infinite importance to mankind. That fact is the death knell of superstition. It gives liberty to every soul, annihilates fear, and ushers in the age of reason. The object of this illustrious man was to comprehend the phenomena of physical objects and their general connection, to represent nature as one great whole, moved and animated by internal forces. For this purpose, he turned his attention to descriptive botany, traversing distant lands and mountain ranges to ascertain the geographical distribution of plants. He investigated the laws regulating the differences of temperature and climate and the changes of the atmosphere. He studied the formation of the Earth's crust, explored the deepest mines, ascended to the highest mountains, and wandered through the craters of extinct volcanoes. He became thoroughly acquainted with chemistry, with astronomy, with terrestrial magnetism, and as the investigation of one subject leads to all others, for that reason, that there's a mutual dependence and a necessary connection between all facts, so Humboldt became acquainted with all the known sciences. His fame does not depend so much on his discoveries, although he discovered enough to make hundreds of reputations, as upon his vast and splendid generalizations. He was to science what Shakespeare was to the drama. There are some truths that we should never forget. Superstition has always been the relentless enemy of science. Faith has been the hater of demonstration. Hypocrisy has been sincere only in its dread of truth, and all religions are inconsistent with mental freedom. Slowly, beautifully, like the coming of the dawn, came the grand truth that the universe is governed by law, that disease fastens itself upon the good and upon the bad, that the tornado cannot be stopped by counting beads, that the rushing lava pauses not for bending knees, the lightning for clasped and uplifted hands, nor the cruel waves of the sea for prayer. Slowly, grandly, beautifully, these truths are dawning upon mankind. The world is beginning to change because people are beginning to think. To think is to advance. Everywhere the great minds are investigating the creeds and superstitions of men, the phenomena of nature, the laws of things. We honor him because he has ennobled our race, because he has contributed as much as any man living or dead to the real prosperity of the world. For these reasons, he is honored throughout the world. Millions are doing homage to his genius at this moment, and millions are pronouncing his name with reverence and recounting what he accomplished. The world is his monument. Upon the eternal granite of her hills, he inscribed his name, and thereupon everlasting stone his genius wrote this, the sublimest of truths. The universe is governed by law. Thank you.